What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to O'Leary's Garden, where life is a garden. Today I just wanted to go a little farther in depth on the mead making, some of the basics, some of the things that you'll want to take with you that I didn't give you in that last video, because I want to set you up for success. uh, and none of it's hard. None of it's hard. There's just some things that I realized I didn't mention because I was kind of winging it in that last video. You know, I got home, I realized I had my last batch of honey had come in, and I was ready to cook up a batch of mead. And I thought, well, why not show y'all what I'm doing? So now I'm going to take some time and just talk you through some of the things that I did yesterday. We'll start with yeast. There are tons of different kinds of yeast that all have different flavor profiles and do different jobs. The three that I use that I showed you in the last video, they're the three that I use. You can experiment with any kind that you want. I did the whole the catfish coulis thing, and I've made wine out of food line grape juice, table sugar, and pizza yeast. And she had a kick. She was drinkable. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I ain't selling bottles of wine in the store or anything like that. You know, I'm not, it ain't fancy wine. It's homemade wine that you can drink that does stuff. Now, the packet that you get in the kit, and anytime you order one, that pack is designed, or it's enough to ferment 6 gallons of mead. It's made for a standard 6-gallon batch. Don't ask me why it's not 5 for wine. It's 6 gallons. So when I put a half a pack of that yeast into my 1-gallon batch, it's 3 times the amount that's necessary. So that's one of the reasons that it goes so quickly. So your primary fermentation is generally done in 2 weeks. You're good to go. You're ready to rack, which is good for what we're going to talk about next, which is fruit. When you make a mead with fruit, it's referred to as a mellimal. But I didn't set you up on the right track with the video yesterday. I just kind of told you to throw the fruit right in your jug. That's not what you want to do. When you're adding fruit to a mead, it depends on where you're getting it. If it's fresh fruit, if you're growing it, or you get it from a grocery store as a fresh piece of fruit, you want to pasteurize it to get rid of any kind of bacteria or wild yeast that's living on the surface of that fruit. And there's 2 ways of doing that. One is called slow pasteurization, which is putting it at a high temperature of 150 degrees for 15 minutes. And you can do that whole, or you can mash it up, which is, some people will recommend that you use it as a puree and mash it up and then pasteurize it. You can do it whole too. Nobody's gonna die. If you're doing it that way, you'll add the fruit first into your jug and then pour in some hot water and give it a shake for the 1-gallon batch. That's the way that I've done it with whole fruits, and it's worked just fine. I have never had a problem with anything going bad. So you'll add your fruit, you'll add your hot water, you'll give it a shake, and then you'll add your honey, some more hot water, shake it some more to dissolve the honey into what you have there. The second way is by freezing. So if you buy frozen fruit from the grocery store and just put that bag right in the jug, you don't have anything to worry about. And that can actually be beneficial. It's said that when you do that, freezing it actually expands all the moisture inside the fruit, and it'll break the cell walls inside the plant and allow more juice to get out, and you'll get more flavor into your mead that way. Another way to add fruit to your mead is by using a juice. And when you do that, you want to make sure that there's no preservatives in it, anything like that. You want to make it sure that it's 100% fruit juice. Concentrate is fine, just as long as there's no preservatives. Next, herbs. If they're dried, don't worry about it. Throw them in the jug, you're good to go. If they're fresh, pasteurize them. Do it the same way you do with the fruit. Some herbs can get bitter, so you want to almost either make a tea or just make a tea. Also with the yeast, I told you incorrectly yesterday when I said that you could pitch it between 90 and 110 degrees. You want to be below 80 degrees. That is my mistake. So you want to make sure it's nice and cool. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you that I've made all of my batches the same way that I did yesterday. And according to that logic, it probably was too hot. It was probably between 90 and 100 degrees. And I have not had any problems with fermentation. That's all I'm going to say. Now, there are two ways to add fruit and herbs to your mead. And that is to do it during primary fermentation or secondary fermentation. The benefits of doing it in the primary fermentation is that you'll take more flavor out of the fruit because the yeast is more active and it's chewing more on the yeast, or I'm sorry, more on the fruit. And you also get some added nutrient from the fruit when you put them in fresh during the primary fermentation. But the con to doing it that way is that you can lose some of those aromatics, some of that stank. Adding your fruit or herbs in the secondary fermentation will save you some of those aromatics, but it will take you much longer to get all of that flavor into your mead that you want. This could involve racking it several times. It could mean that you add your fruit after you rack it off of the primary fermentation, all the dead yeast on the bottom, all that sediment, and then you let it sit for a month or so before you rack it off of the fruit. Adding these things in the primary can also give you some bitterness if you leave those things in there for too long, just like we were talking about with the herbs, making a tea and whatnot. You generally want to get it off of the fruit in 2 weeks. Now, since you're using 3 times the recommended amount of yeast in your small batch, the way that I'm doing it, your primary fermentation is done in 2 weeks. Always. The final thing that I want to mention to you is that you don't have to do it with the plastic tubing that I showed you yesterday. You don't. I guess that's probably the hard way, because you can do it with a racking cane. I just don't have one. And that's just, it has that plastic hose on it, and then it has a solid plastic tube, and this cane that goes on the inside of it that when you pull it up, it builds pressure in the tube by pulling up oxygen or air, and then when you push it down, know what I'm saying? And with that, if you take those things with you when you go, you should do pretty well, because that's about all I know about making mead as of now. Like I said, I've only made 7-8 gallons, something like that, and these things that I've done have worked just fine. Everything's drinkable. Everything makes you feel kind of funny. Oh, actually, I did want to talk to you a little bit about the aging process. Although I said that I don't age my meads like that, you know, I'll finish a bottle, or I'll finish bottling a gallon, and I'll open a bottle and drink it, no problem. I ain't worried about that, okay? But you've seen all the bottles sitting on my shelf, and I like my beer a lot. So I don't drink all of it, and some of it's been sitting up there for a while. And it is technically wine, so it does get better with age. There's nothing wrong with letting it sit up there. I do it too. And finally, I'm going to mention that kit to you one more time. It comes with a 1-gallon glass fermenter, an airlock, a cap for the jug, and a pack of yeast for $15, $16. You can't go wrong with that. You really can't. That's a great place to start, and that has everything that you need in it to get your first batch cooking. Of course, there'll be a link for you in the thing. With that, I want to thank you for watching and having a beer with me. Please remember to do your online shopping at o'learylink.com if you like what we're doing here. Take care.